Hello and welcome. After our previous video on starting development with SimConnect for Flight Simulator 2024, it is now time for our second video on this topic. In the last video, we discussed how to get started with programming for SimConnect using managed code, in this case C#, how to set up your project, how to get connected, and we looked into how to get some basic data, in our case the position of the player's aircraft, all from through the SimConnect connection. In this video, I'll get back to SimConnect development, obviously. In the last video, I promised to show you some of the debugging technique in Flight Simulator 2024. Unfortunately, I forgot about that in the last video. So in this video, I will try to show you something about debugging in Flight Simulator 2024, specifically for SimConnect. But before we get into that, I wanted to show you some different concepts in getting data from the simulator related to facilities. Before I get into how that works, a little bit more background information on facilities. What we mean with facilities is everything around airports, navigation aids, stuff like that, stuff on the ground, basically. And that being said, I'm going to show you a little image. Let's just put that on like this. Which should look familiar. We still have the external program that runs our SimConnect client, and we have Flight Simulator 2024, which runs our SimConnect server. And this image actually assumes that you're already connected to the SimConnect server. The first thing you want to do when working with this is you want to think about scale and how much facilities you want to know about. In our use case, we want to know about all the facilities because all the facilities in a certain area, because we don't know what airport our user is going to fly to, and it's important for our use case. So what we want to do is actually subscribe to facilities events. There's a bunch of them. Actually, we want to subscribe to when a new facility comes in and when a facility is out of range. And to do that, you call subscribe to facilities. In this case, _ex1 means we want to do the new call that's only available in 2024 instead of the old way, which would give you everything. This only gives you the type of facility you request within the realism area, so within the reality of the user. So it could span up to a couple hundred nautical miles, but not the entire planet. So that's good. And then when we do that, the simulator will start sending us through the SimConnect server on receive airport list events, because we request airports. That's the code I'm going to show you. You could also request nav aids, as I said earlier. There are other types. You can find those in the SDK documentation. And it will keep doing that, sending these events until you have all the data available. So the first call will have a big list, and then as the player moves, its reality scope might change, and it will send new events to let you know about that. And then when you no longer want those updates, you call and subscribe to facilities _ex1, and it obviously stops sending these events. Simple enough. So let's look at some code. I'm going to stop the code for a moment. So you see here our simulator class. I'm actually going to go up to the initialize first, because that's where we get started. In the initialize, we have the on receive airport list, which we've seen. in the image, and I've bound an event to that. It's good to know. We can do a find on subscribe to, and there we go. So here's our function. We have a function called subscribe to facilities list. It calls the function subscribe to facilities list underscore ex1. We can specify the type. In this case, I want airports. I can show you the other ones. So you can have NDBs, VORs, you can have the count, waypoints. So these are very useful. In our case, we want the airports, and then we assign them a data request. In this case, we want to do facility in range is the ID that we gave it. And we have, so this is the data request it will send when airports are in range. And this is the data request that it will give you when airports get out of range. So let's get back to the event handler to see how we handle the event. That is the onReceive airport list. Go to that. There's some old code I was using to test, which is this part. You can ignore that. What's important is we check the request ID to see if it is the facility in range or the facility out of range in our case. If it's the in range, apparently we get a new airport or a list of airports. So we call read airports list and send the data. If not, we call the remove airports from list and call the data in Arc12. So let's look at that code. We have some logging, and then whatever is in data.rg data, which is an object array, we can cast that into we can call cast on the array with SimConnect data facility airport, which is a struct type or class type actually, and then it will give us an enumerable of that type. And then we can loop through that. And in our case, we have a list of airports with our own airport type that we want to use. So we check that list to see if we already have this airport. If so, we just skip this one and go to the next one. And if not, we call airports.add and construct our airport class, like so. In this case, we have the ident and the latitude and the longitude. And we could peek the definition right here to show you what is available. So we have the ident, the region, the latitude, the longitude, the altitude, and that's basically it. So there's not much data in here, which makes sense because you might get quite a lot of these objects coming back. I should also note that if you request a different type, you're going to have obviously a different facility type to cast to in the SDK. With remove, it's pretty much the same thing. Again, we cast to this facility airport class, and then we have this enumerable we can run through, try to find the airport based on the ident. And if we found it, we remove it from our list. So this keeps our airports list in sync with what's in Flight Simulator 2024 for the user, which is excellent. But it also gives us very little information because it only gives us airport location and the ident for our use case. And we would like to have some more information on runways, etc. Which brings us to our next slide. How to get facility details. Actually, this works fairly similar to getting normal SimObject variables, except that you might get multiple calls. I'll get into that. You start with add to facility data, which basically defines your data structure, or the data that you want to have from the facility when you request a new facility. This could be quite a lot of data, we might see later. You can call that multiple times. I'm going to show you in the code how that looks. Then you call register facility data define struct. There might be multiple calls for this. In our case, there's going to be one for the airport and one for the runways. Again, you'll see in the code. And then you send a request to get the actual data. And the simulator will start sending you on receive facility data events. And it will keep doing that until it's done, which it will then it will show you by sending an on receive facility data end event. In this case, if you receive this request is done. That might be a little bit quick, so we'll also go through some code. We'll go here. Again, we'll start with initialize. As you may have noticed previously, we have the SimConnect on receive facility data end handler and the on receive facility data event handler. So these two events, you get these first, and then at the end you get this end event when you start requesting data. Next, we'll go into the connect function, which we'll call the register facility data. So step in here. And above it, you see the register location data from the previous video, where you see that we have at the data definition, and we have our data definition identifier here with some property that we want to have. It's actually quite similar for facilities. You call add to facility data definition or add to facility definition. Then you call with an ID, and you should have the same ID for whatever you want to wrap into one data definition. And you can then specify what properties you want to have. All these names can be found in the SDK documentation. So if you need to know about these, you should probably look into the facility section of the SimConnect reference. And when you're done specifying the data that you want, you have to call at least one register facility data define struct with a struct that you want to use. This is defined by you, so you have to do something similar to what you've done with register data define struct. And then you specify the type. So you don't specify this. This is only used for event handling. It's not used for attaching the struct. Here you say, if I receive something of type airport, so anything in here that will match an airport, tie it into this definition. And the same goes for runways. There's one more thing I need to talk about. You may have noticed that we have some calls actually in there. These are not properties from facilities. There's a call open airport. So everything below this is about airports. So the number of runways and the ICAO, that's the ident. And then there's an open runway. So every property below this is actually on runways inside this airport. So primary number, designator, etc. Latitude, longitude, well, all of those. And when you're done with runway, you could call close runway. You could even then go on and specify more airport data. In our case, we didn't close airport. So you can actually follow a structure. There's also data about taxiways, for example. There are probably other things like maybe refueling and stuff like that. In the facility data, I don't know all of the details on the top of my head, but you should probably look into the documentation if you want to do something specific. Once you define this, you can then start calling the request for data. Let me just pull up that function. That is get facility details in our case. We send an identifier, specify which one we want, equal request facility data. We define the data definition, the airport details, is a list of things that we wanted to have. And the request ID, in this case, facility details. We specify the identity, the ICAO code, show you like this. And you can optionally specify a region if that's what you want to do. This is mainly important if you're going to do navigation, like VORs and NVs and stuff. They may have double identifiers, and you need to specify which one you want to have. Then it will start triggering the events that we attached earlier. So it will get this event, the receive facility data. And as you can see, we can get two types because that's what we requested. We can get airports and we get runways. So you find that in data.type, and then we pass in stuff that we want to do with airports and stuff we want to do with runways. So let's go to airports first. In case of an airport, we can actually cast this to our struct. And we can then just read whatever we want. In this case, we want to do the ICAO, put that in the ident. And then we want to make sure that if we already have the details in here, we don't have to do anything. But if we don't, then we want to set the location. So that's how we deal with that. And then there's some logic here. And then read runway details actually does a very similar thing. Again, you can cast, actually it does slightly different. This is an object array. And each of these elements is a runway details definition. So we have multiple runways, which makes sense. And then we can get the data that we wanted to have. And in our case, we want to check if we already have this runway in the details. If not, then, well, if we do, we want to update them in our case. But this is fine. I also realized that I haven't shown you the structs yet. So let's go up here. This is the one for airports. Well, we talked about the struct layout, attribute, and the SimVar string types in the previous video. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, go and watch that video. And then, well, there's the basic properties. So it's really easy to define the structure of your data. And that's pretty much all what there is when it comes to reading facility data. Obviously, you can do a lot more and go into a lot more detail if that's what you need. But in our case, for our use case, this is fine. Next, I promised you to show a little bit about debugging and how that works. So I'm going to open the sim. I spawned into an airport here with an aircraft, so actually not that important for the demo. When you're working with SimConnect, I think the most important tool is under Tools in the developer mode. By the way, if you don't know how to get into the developer mode, it's really easy. You find it under Settings, Advanced. Just enable it and you're done. I'm not going to demo it because it's so common. It's described in tons of places, so you should be able to find it. Most important tool I think we have is the SimConnect Inspector. When working with SimConnect. If you open it, it might open like this. You can actually have it as a window floating or whatever you like. If we open this drop down here, we see processes that have a SimConnect connection currently active. It's always good practice to open the SimConnect Inspector before you run your application, because this will also enable it to track stuff that you're doing. So we'll start our application. It's starting up now. Actually building, sorry. There it is. So I'm not going to connect just yet. I'm going to go into here to show you something. Now our project is here. If it's very pilot runway incursions, I can click it. It will open this detailed definition. You can ask for statistics. We haven't connected yet, so it doesn't have any calls yet. If there is exceptions caused by calls that you made, they should be listed here. And there's frames. Again, we haven't called anything yet, so there are not going to be any data definitions. We didn't create any data definitions yet, so again, no data, no events, and no facility data. Now, watch as I go back to the app. I click connect. Bunch of stuff starts to happen. First of all, we can see statistics. We can see what calls we made and how many we made of those calls. So we did 3 at the data definition calls, 1 per frame. We created 100 simulated objects. That took 3 frames apparently because we did about 33 a frame, etc. No exceptions. That's cool. These are the frames, so you can actually see that within one frame, one simulator frame, we actually have these calls made. And you can actually, yeah, you can't really see much inside, but yeah, you can see what calls were made and some of the parameters. So it can be useful. So that's that, and then we can also see, and I found this very useful when trying to troubleshoot memory issues or inconsistent data. You can see your data definitions. These integers map to whatever you had in your enum. And if you click one, you get the data definition. In this case, this shows us the location of the user plane. So these are the properties it will try and get for you, and these are the units. And then these are the types and the sizes. So that's very useful. You should be able to map that to your struct. I don't have any events. You can have user-defined events and then map these to things, and they'll show up in here. And then there's facility data definition. This is what we did before. And you actually get this sort of hierarchical view. I'm actually going to make this a little bit bigger, like so. And you can see that now these open and close statements start to make a little bit more sense. You have an airport and it has members, and then it has runways, and those have members. So this is your structure. So that's really cool. So yeah, you can actually see quite a lot happening in here. So yeah, that's what I wanted to show you. I hope you found this interesting. Next time I'll try and talk a little bit about creating objects, and maybe do a little demo on the runway incursions project. But for now, this is it. If you like the video, please leave a like, a subscribe. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. I'll be happy to try and help you. And with that, I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.